You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. You wanted it, you got it. A radio program that helps teach you options trading inside and out, basic to complex. This is Options Bootcamp. Whether you want to learn how to protect your portfolio, generate income, or even become a master of volatility, the Options Bootcamp drill instructors will break it all down for you. Now, let's get you into peak options trading shape. Here are your Options Bootcamp drill instructors.
All right, everybody, let's do it. Let's dive into the fun here on Options Bootcamp. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever scintillating, ever surprising, ever engaging, at least we hope so, Options Insider Radio Network. Coming at you here for the premier options educational program, of course, Options Bootcamp, holding court every Wednesday here on the network. If I sound pumped up, rearing, ready to go, it's because I just came off the last episode. We are in part 2 of our double header, our double whammy here of Options Bootcamp goodness. So for all of you on-demand folks, this will be hitting the network, of course, at its usual time slot next week. For all of our pro folks, the cool catch, you can get it live now, or of course on the old exclusive pro podcast feed, which doesn't just have exclusive early shows, listeners. It has exclusive shows. I was looking the other day. We have nearly 100 just pro Q&As on there. So you're talking almost 100 hours of just pro Q&As on the exclusive feed. You can literally go for days listening to questions be answered by some of the top minds in the world of options and derivatives. You could, of course, participate in all future ones and ask your own questions, as well as nearly 100 hours of options oddities. If you need a lot of great, just weird, unusual activity, talk ourselves into some fun trading, Oatly, all that goodness, that's all there as well as live access to this, everything else we do here on the network. So if you want to heckle Dan, I should say, in real time on the network, you know where to go. Theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go. A lot of pro trading crates just left the studio here this week. So get your name in the hat to win the February pro trading. I'm looking at some of the stuff they're putting in these boxes, and I'm like, really? You're sending that out? That's pretty cool. So you guys are getting some good stuff. I'm even a little jealous of some of the stuff we're sending out. I should go grab some before it's gone. But no, I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it all for you folks. Theoptionsinsider.com/pro. Just don't tell the Rock Lobster. He's already really jealous of you folks there. If I tell him what good stuff is there, then he'll be even more jealous. You know who's always jealous as well? He is the black-hatted one himself, Mr. Dan Passarelli from Market Taker Mentoring. What the cool kids call to Mr. P, welcome back to the program, sir.
Hey, Mark, it is great to be back. How's it going, my friend?
I am doing well. You know, the folks were busy this week. The folks came with the questions. They brought the thunder. What do you think? You think you're up to a little bit of the old mail call?
I'm in, baby. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Here we go. A little bit of the old mail call.
Mail call. Time to look at questions submitted by our listeners.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the mail call, the portion of the show where you folks take the reins, your questions, your comments, your insights, your pearls of wisdom out here. You guys, you guys really brought it this week here. So let's see. We have quite the embarrassment of riches on the question front to sort through Tell you what, I will start with this one here because it's a little bit of an involved one. This came in, actually, I believe, last week from Celicia. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Celicia says, did you guys see the SEC throwing the book at these shady dudes? Couldn't happen to better people. And he includes a link to this article. I think this might be from CNBC or MarketWatch. I can't really tell. And the title is DOJ and SEC charge social media influencers an alleged $100 million stock pump and dump scheme. And the article goes on to say, let's look at some of the bullet points here. Federal prosecutors and the SEC on Wednesday, this was probably, last month all this happened. It's happened in December. They said they charged 7 social media influencers with using Twitter and Discord to commit securities frauds that netted them more than $100 million in illicit gains. An 8th influencer was also charged with aiding and abetting the scheme. Blah, 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 blah. They were charged with conspiracy to commit securities fraud as well. I love if you're committing securities fraud, it probably is implied that you're also conspiring to do so as well, unless you just fell into securities fraud. I love when they tack on those charges as well. They say the defendants used the social media platforms to manipulate exchange-traded stocks in a scheme going back to at least January of 2020. So it actually predates the pandemic by a few months. Through widely followed Twitter accounts and stock trading chat rooms on Discord, these defendants allegedly, quote, promoted themselves as successful traders, according to an SEC press release, and encouraged followers to buy stocks that they also purchased. Well, I wonder where this is going, Dan. But they did not disclose to their followers while promoting those stocks that they plan to sell shares. Yeah. Once prices or trading volumes rose, the DOJ and SEC alleged. The influencers gained a profit by pumping the stock prices, then selling once they rose, earning about $100 million in total. Yeah, Dan, this is kind of a fraud as old as time itself, the old pump and dump. They are using new means to do it. They're using Discord and chat rooms and social media. You know, back in the day, it used to be newsletters or email. I remember when we first launched the Options Insider way back in 2007, we started getting a lot of calls very early on saying, hey, you know, how big is your email list? How big is your audience? All these other things. And they said, hey, you want to come and promote this particular stock on your network or to your subscribers on email or on your website. And we would look and see what it was. And it was some nonsense garbage pink sheet thing that never traded. And you're like, oh, okay. So you obviously own a bazillion shares of this thing. And you've obviously calculated it out to whatever it costs you to promote this thing. It's worth it in the long run for the pump you're going to get on these shares. So this has been around since time immemorial. Obviously, we said no and said, get the hell out of Dodge here, listeners. But these folks obviously said yes. Dan, I wish I could say I'm surprised by this, but I'm not. There are a lot of shady characters out here. This is not even limited to options. This sounds like it was mostly just stocks. But what are your thoughts here, Dan? Yet more folks taking advantage of folks masquerading as pros in the market and taking them to the tune of $100 million.
Yeah, that is as old as it gets, man. And, you know, like 2 years ago, almost 3, we had the meme stock thing. And, you know, you look at some of it and you're like, I don't know. I was in the minority, I guess, where I was saying, wow, you know, there's like obviously a bunch of people who are literally conspiring online, whether it's pump and dump or not, but like conspiring to buy a stock and manipulate the market is also illegal. So this is, I think, a step in the right direction. You know, I mean, yeah, as we all know, it's a crazy time in our history where people care less about laws and they, you know, get together and have, you know, their political views trump, you know, what's actually right or wrong. And, you know, there are even people in our government defending these people who are conspiring online to manipulate the market as if it were a good thing. So, yeah, I'm glad to see that there is a watchdog back over our markets, keep them fair and honest.
Yeah, the whole anti-short selling thing, how short selling was somehow un-American. So it was your right to conspire against them and try to drive these stocks up. Yeah, all that was, we got kind of lost in the weeds there a little bit, Mr. Dan. So you're right. Good to see they're cleaning house here a little bit. They probably have a lot more work to do. They certainly do in the option space. Here's a pro tip, listeners. Anyone who's out there marketing themselves next to a Lamborghini, next to a jet, saying you can make $1 million tomorrow with no skill, no risk, just follow my my moves and pay for my whatever it is, $10,000 guru service or newsletter, whatever it is. Just run screaming the other way. You'll be served well. Let me just put it that way. It's a good rule of thumb to live by out there. All right, let's keep on rolling here, Dan. It's here's an old school listener. Wow, I love this. I love this person. I could tell, A, I love our international listeners. We love you all. B, I love the ones who are polite enough to include a pronunciation guide. This comes from Ali John Elgin. I would have read it, or maybe Elgin. I would have read it differently. So thank you for your pronunciation guide there. Ali John says, hi, both. Listen to all of your episodes since 2012 and just finished the last one. Wow, Dan, there you go. That's commitment for you.
That's awesome.
What an inspiring and informative show. Thank you for that. I'm reaching out to you from Frankfurt, Dan, but unfortunately not from Dan's Frankfurt, but the German one. So there you go, Dan. No accounting for taste. There's no Charlie horse in his town, but I think he has better Sauerbraten and Wiener Schnitzel. What do you think?
Yes, probably better beer, better Lederhosen. Even have a Lederhosen store.
I was going to say Lederhosen's got to be knocking it out of the park in Frankfurt. His Frankfurt versus yours. I don't think the Lederhosen in your Frankfurt up to snuff there. He goes on to say, I say unfortunately because of the following new German tax law. If you buy a premium and sell it with a loss or let it expire worthless, your realized loss is deducted from your realized gains only up to 20,000 euros. Oh.
What?
Any of your losses above this limit are not regarded. This limits the German options traders with their choices of strategies, even with the common spreads. Which strategies can you recommend to me that would not involve the worthless expiration or the selling of formerly bought premium? He says, P.S. With buying premium, I meant buying a call or buying a put. The limitation of 20,000 applies when you sell those with a loss or let them expire worthlessly. Wow, that's terrible. You have our sympathies there, Ali John. That's ridiculous. Why would they do that? Local tax laws for options, Dan. We probably do many shows on the ridiculous things we've seen go through. You know, the second you sell a covered call, treat it like you sell the stock at that price. All sorts of weird things have been cooked up by local governments. Sounds like the German government is no different. So now I'm a little confused, Ali John. Does that mean, let's say if we said buy a call spread instead of just buying a call, will they only count the premium lost on the long side and not count the net? Because then obviously your net premium is less. So that's the way I would go first. You're trying to obviously reduce your premium outlay with these types of strategies. I would say, Dan, strategies that are much more premium limited or premium neutral are the way to go. So forget about even straight verticals. Maybe you want to go flies and ratios and things like that, where you're selling two against one to really, really mitigate your outlay there. So instead of just buying your call in XYZ, maybe you're going to buy a call butterfly now. So you're going to buy one, sell two a little bit farther out of the money calls, and then buy one much farther out of the money call. And hopefully your net outlay will be very small, so that at the end of the day, if you do lose something on that outlay, you could keep rinse and repeating that strategy for a long time before you hit your 20,000 euro limit. Now, that's off the top of my head. Dan, A, what are your thoughts on this ridiculous new law? And B, what do you think Ali John should be doing as a result?
Well, I'll work backwards. What I think you should be doing is voting for someone besides the people who made this.
I didn't know Elizabeth Warren also worked in Germany. Interesting. I went political there. We won't do that. We're just having fun. Just having fun, listeners. She's known to have some boneheaded derivatives taxation proposal. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. I mean, look, man, like the whole thing about option trading is it truly democratizes the world of finance, because you have literally the same tools that professional traders have at your disposal. It enables you to control your financial future, not have to rely on the government for Social Security to retire, not have to worry about a pension that will never be there when you retire. It's the most beneficial thing to a typical person And this law is designed to discourage that. It's designed to take that away. And I don't know, I guess the government of Germany must want to not have you take care of yourself, but to pay more money to take care of I don't understand. This doesn't make any frickin' sense to me at all.
Yeah, this is the challenging one. I also give the caveat, obviously, Ali, John, and everyone else out there. Dan and I, obviously not CPAs or not tax professionals. But that said, it sounds like you do want to avoid the straight up buying a premium going forward for you, because you could obviously hit that. If you buy it and just the fact that it expires worthless, that alone, that you could easily start running up against that pretty quickly. So like I mentioned, if you're going to buy premium, you want to sell something else against it. Probably on a ratio, I would say probably flies are a good way to go, because then you're not just buying one, selling two calls. You also have that farther out of the money call against it. That's going to be very cheap, though. So it's not going to be adding a lot of premium to your net outlay. So that's a good way to do it. Make your trades premium mitigated. You can do the same thing to the downside, too. You can obviously do a 1x2 put spreads, buying one, selling two to the downside. You could leave off the third leg there. You don't need to fly that off if you're comfortable buying the stock at that lower level where you're short two puts. I would also say start leaning towards strategies that are mostly premium harvesting. So maybe the wheel would be a good one in your case, where you sell a put to get into a particular underlying. If you get the stock put to you, you then turn around, sell covered calls against it. You're getting paid on both legs to get into and get out of the stock. Very basic, very straightforward strategy. It involves no premium outlay on your part. So it should allow you to avoid that sort of, though, this ridiculous tax limitation. Also, obviously, covered calls by themselves are going to look good. Things like collars, not so much, because they have the premium outlay on the downside. But you can, if you can sell enough covered calls against it, you can mitigate some of that. But in general, yeah, I'd say you definitely want to step back from straight up buying premium. No at the money straddles for you, unfortunately, there, Ali John. That's going to hit that limit pretty quick. You want to stay, if you're going to buy stuff, stay with things that are sold against it, preferably in a ratio like a butterfly. So your net outlay will be very small. And if you do some of those downside puts flies or put spreads to the downside, buy one, selling two, then you can also, of course, even get those off for a credit, which is much more attractive for you there. So I would say go for those, and then also lean towards premium harvesting strategies like the wheel is a great one, or the covered call by itself, or this cash secured put by itself. Not the sexiest thing, I get it, but they're effective, and they will let you do a bit of a dodge around this weird tax structure. So the fly is about the craziest I would get. Dan, anything else you want to add here for our longtime listener and your fellow Frankfurter, Ali John?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, look, like, I'm definitely not a political guy at all. You know, I just find people who are annoying, frankly. So sorry for listeners if you are, super politically minded. But, this is one of those things where I think you kind of have to get involved and really fight this. I mean, most people in government don't understand options, and we are a comparatively small community that doesn't have pull, and we have to fight against people who have the power to make laws to take away our ability to take care of ourselves. And so, you kind of have to start writing some letters, doing some petitions, calling them out, voting against them. And, and I know it's like one of these things you just don't want to get involved with, but, you have to fight for your right to take care of your own financial freedom,
Or you can just move to Dance Frankfurt, and then you have unlimited options trading here, Ali John. So come join us. The weather's great here. Maybe not this time of year, but other times of the year. The weather's great here. So I'm sorry to hear that, Ali John. Let us know how it works out. And again, stay towards the premium harvesting side. If you are buying premium, then make sure you're selling one, if not multiple options against it to offset that. And maybe that'll help you do a little bit of an end run around that very ridiculous limitation there. Let's keep on rolling. We got questions from all over this week, Dan. We'd love to see all of you out there, international, on social media, email, all of the above. This one coming in looks like from Twitter, from Yield Hunter. I like that handle, Yield Hunter. Yield Hunter says, hey, Mark and Dan, is it possible to earn yield on the cash used as collateral for cash secured puts. Will my broker allow me to purchase short-term T-bills or a money market fund that gives some yield? Mr. Dan, we were just talking about this. We were just talking about this with a covered strangle and the margin that you set aside for that cash secured put. What do you have to say here for Yield Hunter? He wants to get paid on all sides, sir.
Well, this is a thing that professional traders would be able to do. I don't know if you traded the SPX, I think, right, Mark? So
yes,
I don't know if you got to experience this, but I mean, I made my living in equity options, and if I had long deltas, I would have to short stock. And, for me, shorting a stock and bringing in that money, I would get interest on that. It's called a short stock rebate. And that's very, very common among professional traders. But a typical retail trader gets screwed, But if you are a big enough trader, you might be able to call your broker and say, hey, man, look, I want to get a short stock rebate. I want to earn interest on the money I bring in on short stock. What can we work out? And, it's like any other industry. There has been a lot of consolidation recently. And so some of these companies are just gigantic. And even if you have a $10 million account, they might not really care that much. So I don't know. That's a little bit of an uphill battle too. I'm like, power to the people, fighting for the underdog here, this whole episode, I guess. But, call them and see what you can work out. And maybe if it comes to it, you might have to move at least some of your money to a different firm where that's allowed.
Yeah, I remember the old short stock days. I did trade at Intel for a while too, and all of a sudden that became a consideration. Wait a minute, what's my stock balance, right? There's not something you had to really think about with the futures out there in the S&P, but in the equities, you did. In terms of the collateral, the margin for your options, yeah, the broker likes to pocket a lot of that stuff often here. Who is this? A Yield Hunter. So yeah, it might be worth, as Dan said, depending on your balance. You don't mention who your broker is. This is going to vary by your broker. This is going to vary by your account size as well. Obviously, the larger account you have, the more actively you trade, the more willing they are to accommodate you and maybe kick some of that old cash, or that should say that return on your cash balance back to you. If you're pretty active, you have a pretty savvy broker. Like Dan said, it doesn't hurt you to contact them and say, hey, my cash balance here that's sitting here, that's being required for my maintenance margin against this cash secured put. I'm not getting anything on that. What can we work out here? What can we do? And it's definitely, again, this is going to vary by your broker. And we'll have to get some brokers on the show, Dan, to talk about the various ins and outs of how they allow this. But unfortunately, it is going to vary by your account size and your activity. So if you only got like 10 or 20 grand in the account and you trade like once a month, they're probably not going to be too motivated to help you out. But if you got a decent size account, you trade fairly actively, the brokers will typically want to keep you. If that means kicking you a couple of % here on the cash over a month or so, I think they'll probably make that happen. But again, this is kind of a your mileage may vary scenario, unfortunately. You think it should be obvious. You think it should be, hey, I got cash set aside, I should get the basic rate for that, but not always the case. All right, let's keep on rolling here. Let's go to... how are we doing here? Let's go to Jacob first, and if we have time, we'll get to Alan. Let's go to Jacob. Jacob Stoker, and again, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. All your international listeners, include your pronunciation key, and then I'll make sure to knock your name out of the park. But Jacob wants to know. He says, "Hi, well, hi, Jacob." He says, "Do you have any documentation or podcasts that talk about how to close out 1x2 call spreads on stocks that I own?" He puts in parentheses the stock repair strategy. The particular scenario would be when the shares are trading above the calls that I sold. I'm wondering if the 1x1 portion would cancel itself out at expiration and I would get called away on the remaining calls sold, or if I would get assigned on the call that I bought that was in the money. My goal would be to not pick up extra shares, but profit from the purchased option and then get called away on the entire position. Thanks. I always enjoy listening to your broadcast. Well, thank you, Jake. Oh, your name sounds familiar. That's right. You came in. This got routed to our OPR show for the huddle we did, but I think it actually came into this show, which is why we wanted to make sure we talked about it here. And it's a good talking point. We talked about stock repair on this show in the past. Listeners, if you're not familiar with them, go back into the archives a little bit. Like our previous listener has done. He listened to all of them now. You don't have to go that crazy, but like Ali John did. Go back a few, you'll see stock repair in there. It's a funky, interesting strategy. As we said on that show, there are some nuances to it, which make it look really cool on paper, a little bit harder to execute that way in the real world for a variety of reasons that we outlined on those episodes. Go check them out if you're interested, listeners. But as Jacob is discovering, so you have the stock, you buy the pretty much at the money call, and then, of course, you sell the 2 out of the money calls against it. In Jacob's scenario, the stock has now rallied, listeners, and he has passed the strike of the calls that he sold. And he wants to know, what now? What now, Dan? What happens to him now in that scenario, sir?
Yeah. So, Jacob, the stock repair strategy is an awesome strategy. And when you learn about it in, from a book or from like a very simple video, it looks very, very simple and black and white and straightforward, but it's really not. It's there is an art to it, and learning how to be nimble with it and to take it off early when you have to, and then rolling it into other things that make more sense becomes a necessary part of doing it right, because you're typically always going to be doing the 1x2 out 3 to 8 months, or 4 to 8 months. And that requires the timing to be just right. And you're never going to get the timing just right. So, yeah, basically the thing is once you're above those short calls, is you can consider taking your profit on the 1x2, or if there's little premium left in the long call, exercising it, buying the stock, and then maybe rolling the short calls up a bit. There's a lot you can do. And so don't be afraid to think out of the box and look at it and say, okay, here's where I am now. What's the best position that I should have on right now to maximize this situation? And I know I'm giving you a lot more questions and a lot more choices, but that's sort of the nature of this strategy.
Yeah, this strategy, a lot of moving parts. As Dan mentioned, usually the timing is a very hard one to get right, because you have to go out pretty far to really make things line up. And then if you get the move earlier than that, what do you do? In Jacob's example, he says it's pretty much at expiration now, and he's past the strikes that he sold. So in that scenario where it's already pretty much expiration day, then you have a couple of things you could do. First off, congratulations, because your strategy worked. That's what you wanted to happen. And now, so you have a long stock, you have pretty much a now in the money call spread that is at max value, and you have the extra call that you are short that is now in the money as well. So what I would do in that scenario, Jacob, sell the in the money call spread. You can get it out for pretty much max value, pretty darn close to it. You don't really want to go through the process of letting that be assigned and exercised. Then you have an in the money call that's going to be automatically exercised for you, so you're going to get long more stock there. Then you have another in the money call that is short that's going to be assigned against you, so you're going to get your stock taken away. So you don't need to go through that hassle. Sell it out in the market and be done with it. And then you could leave the stock on, and then it'll get called away automatically with that second short call. And then you're done. You wash your hands of it. You've made money. You've hopefully broken even at a much lower strike price, and everything is hunky-dory. So in that scenario you outlined, Jacob, that's a win for you on the stock repair. You should be happy there. But yes, the short answer to the question is yes, all that's going to get called away, and you don't have to worry about picking up extra shares, because you're getting shares for the long call, but you're losing them again with the short call, and you have an extra short call on top of that to take away the shares you already had. So you're good. So congratulations, Jacob. And to everyone else who took the time to write in this week, we say thank you to all of you, even from those of you writing in from overseas. I want to see some Lederhosen photos coming in from all of our other Frankfurt listeners out there. And Dan, before we go, if they want to see photos of you in your Lederhosen, where should they go? And then what else you got cooking over there at MTM, sir?
Oh my goodness. Well, yeah, I don't have Lederhosen per se. I do have So like a couple, like I do have a German sports jacket that's kind of cool. And I do have plans to go to Oktoberfest this year in Munich. So who knows? Maybe I'll buy some there. But
maybe you can swing by and see our buddy Ali John in how far is Munich from Frankfurt? I don't know.
Which Frankfurt? Mine?
Yeah. From yours, it's a long way. Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. It can't be that far, right? Probably a bullet train ride away. But yeah, hey, make your way on over to markettaker.com. We love our bootcamp listeners to join us, become part of our community, and grow as a trader.
So it's 3 hours by train, Dan, and 4 hours and 20 minutes if you wanted to drive. So there you go. A little bit of extra learning here. Only an hour on Lufthansa if you're crazy enough to fly. So there you go, listeners. Munich to Frankfurt and beyond here on the old Options Bootcamp. Of course, that music means we are done for today. I want to thank all of you out there who joined us here. If you're listening live, you already got today's episode a week early. So congratulations to you. For the rest of you, this is hitting the network now next week for us. So if you want to get this stuff earlier, you want to get access to all the exclusive shows, everything else we're doing out there, theoptionsinsider.com/pro, or for you cool kids, you like your own URL. I get it. You want to feel special. /secret club. Just don't tell anybody about that last one. It's a secret. Back again throughout the rest of the week. All of our usual rash of content here on the network, all the way through to next Education Wednesday, another episode of Options Bootcamp. Stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.